The 70th edition of the U.S. Nationals is sponsored by Peak. Peak original equipment technology matches all vehicle manufacturers' antifreeze technology requirements, and Peak has the perfect match for your vehicle. With their line of premium coolant specifically designed to match the technology and color requirements, as well as easy-to-read color cues on the packaging and label, and a list of covered vehicles make it easy to identify the right match for your ride. Find out more information about all Peak antifreeze and coolants at peakauto.com or using the link below. And be sure to sign up for our Peak US Nationals giveaway contest. We're giving away 3 swag bags from our friends at Peak Performance. Winners will be announced during Monday's recap video following the 70th edition of the US Nationals. A link to the form will be provided below. All right, so we're here with Jack Beckman. You have graciously let us into your home away from home this weekend as you get set for the 70th edition of the US Nationals. The first question I got for you, does it even feel real yet that you're the one that's going to be driving this car?
It's starting to, but I'll clarify something. I didn't let you in here. They had to open the doors to let me in here. Yeah, this is John Force Racing here, and I had 14 years driving at Don Schumacher Racing, and their headquarters is right down the road. And if you were doing an aerial view, they are the 2 biggest race shops that drag racing's seen. And yeah, I still pinch myself every day.
You talked about those 14 years you spent with Don Schumacher Racing. You spent your entire career chasing this car as well as Robert, right down the street from here. You finished 3rd in the championship when John won his last back in 13. Does it feel kind of surreal now that you've gone from chasing it to the one that's sitting behind it?
I had an enviable record against John head-to-head. And I got asked many times why. And my stock answer is, in most of those races, I had the quicker car. The crew chiefs give you a tune-up. Your job as a driver is don't screw up that tune-up. But I also think that all these people would get intimidated against John. They'd get worked up. They'd want to fight. They'd just get in their own heads and make mistakes. I loved pulling up next to John Force. I just felt like this is something I can tell my grandkids, that I got to race against that man. And then remember, I've been sitting on the sidelines fixing elevators for almost 4 years. So when the call came, 1, of course you're going to jump at that opportunity. I mean, who wouldn't? 2 is, I know I'm not replacing John Force. I get that. There's just no replacing that guy. There's been a lot of phenomenal drag racers over the years. There's only one John Force. I'm getting to drive John's car, and my job's to do the best that I can. I'm not going to let that get in my head.
And you talked about, those 4 years you spent as a surface elevator. Take me back to 2020. Fox played the interview that you had back at the end of Vegas at the end of the season. You talked about you not knowing if you're going to be back at this. When you left that track knowing that you were out of a ride going into the next year, and did you ever think that you were going to be back in this position?
Yes, and that thought diminished every month that I wasn't. I'm not great at marketing, but I thought maybe something would open up. But out of sight, out of mind. And when you're not out there driving a car, I let my license expire. I just saw myself getting further and further away from a chance to get back in the cockpit. There was an opportunity to get back in a dragster for 2 races last year. But NHRA had just rescinded the COVID policy, which is you can have a replacement driver for, I believe it was 2 races. And so that opportunity went away. And I really thought that probably was my last hurrah. And then not only was it surprising when I got the phone call this year, but then to find out there's a new driver replacement policy in effect, and it's 8 races. And at the time I got the phone call, there were 10 races left on the tour. But for me to get my medical, get licensed, and get to that first race, at that time would have been Seattle, was doable, but it was monumental. And then Robert Height called me back. He said, change of plan. 8 races, we just found out about the policy. That would bring you back at Brainerd. We can go license you at Norwalk Night Under Fire. Gives us a little bit of breathing room. I got to make sure sponsors, family, everybody's on board with this, so just stand down for a little bit. And then you asked if this felt real. Going to Norwalk didn't feel real. I fixed elevators the day before. I fixed elevators 2 days after that. Going to Brainerd, once I started getting to the rhythm of the qualifying, back to where I was used to, it was going to work, it started feeling real.
And you talked about, you went back to Norwalk. Your first runs in this car again were less than a month ago at Night Under Fire. Then you went to Brainerd and you did a pretty good job, I would say, at that race as well. Now you're going to US Nationals. Then you're told, go win us a championship. No pressure, right?
So I'm a big fan and an employee of the Frank Hawley School of Drag Racing, and the way you think about things affects the way you handle things, right? So pressure is often self-induced, right? The pressure of throwing that complete pass on 4th down in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl is no more pressure than throwing a complete pass in preseason scrimmage. But if you think it is, you might screw it up by putting undue pressure on yourself. In a perfect world, I won't let that happen. In the real world, that does happen. So my goal is just to manage it the best I can. I'm still rusty. I'm still a little bit behind the car. I haven't had any race day tire shake, tire smoke opportunities where I get to react to what the car does. And I hadn't practiced reaction times in 3.5 years. I'm going to keep working on that stuff to the best of my ability to get better and better. So we'll have Indy, which is the biggest race of the year. There's no necessary incentive to win Indy. Indy is its own incentive. Then we're going to reset the points, and you got 6 races in the playoffs, and you need to play air-free baseball here.
So when I walked in here, I ran into your son, Jack. I have been in contact with him the last couple of months. He's done some design work for me in the past, including the U.S. Nationals.
We call him Jason, but that's okay.
I get confused with you. Probably like time. Sorry. So I walked in here and saw him, and when you got announced for this ride, or I was hearing speculation you're going to be one this ride, I found this old picture from 2007. You walked out onto the stage holding him as an infant with a sign on his shirt saying, "Get well soon, John." Does it make it any more special that now you get to come back into the sport, and now they're old enough to the point where they're involved with the sport as well? Because Jason himself is working on Chris King's car, somebody who you're going to be racing this week. And does it make it that more special that they get to be here and be involved in this activity?
So I had completely forgotten about that shirt. It was a onesie that we had made. John had just got injured in Dallas. Yeah, and Jason was wearing that "Get well soon." Wow, I'd completely forgotten about that. Well, there you go. I've loved John for a long time, right? I'm not a Johnny come lately to being a John Force fan. By the way, I really am a John. My birth certificate says John Russell Beckman. Yeah, I think it is special because my son was raised around drag racing, so I don't think he appreciated that much. It was just what Dad did for a living, and it was always available. So if you live right next to Disneyland, it doesn't seem like that big a deal, right? If you got to travel across country and sacrifice something, all of a sudden it seems like a big deal. So he's now starting to get a little more appreciative of it. He's a hardcore NASCAR guy, and I'm fine with that. I don't care. I just want him to be passionate about something. He's here this weekend wearing a John Force Peak Chevrolet shirt. I think that's pretty cool.
And then another question I got for you too. You know, we talked about your being thrust into a position to go try and win a championship. What would it mean to you to win John a 17th championship in the NHRA? And I believe 18th overall with the NHRA one?
Well, I would say ask me after Pomona. I mean, that's clearly the goal, right? Nobody says at the beginning of the year, man, we want to finish second. That's our goal. We want to go out there and win races. And really, if you win rounds, that same philosophy should enable you to win races. And if you win races, that same philosophy should enable you to win the championship. We're going to have a tough road because Austin Prock's got a ton of those mission points that will add after the countdown reset, and he'll carry those into the playoffs. And there's a bunch of hot rods running excellent right now. So the competition's as tough as it's ever been. But people said, well, there'll be an asterisk next to this championship if you win it for John. I said, sure, okay, whatever each individual wants to put on that, I totally understand that, and you can do whatever you want to do with that. But that is the rules package that all of us are racing within. It wasn't instituted for John Force. That policy went into effect during the last off season. It was there specifically to help out the ladies that might want to be out of the cockpit for a while to start a family. That's why I went to 8 races instead of 2. But if we can benefit from that, and it is completely within the rules, and John can get up on stage at the end of the year and give champion speech number 17 for NHRA, I'll sit back and just smile and have goosebumps.
And just to add on a little bit of that, Ray Haroon, Indianapolis, won the 1911 500. He had a co-driver. No one ever talks about that, so I don't think the asterisk is going to be a worry. Another thing I need to ask you talked about Austin Prock. You know, over the course of the season, I've talked to a lot of drivers, and they've all talked about how lethal this funny car class is. You've been gone since 2020. You come back. Just talk about how lethal of killers these guys are, because as Matt Hagan put it to me back in Chicago, there are no more gimme rounds in this class. How are you experiencing that coming back here?
Well, I mean, I can tell you, we barely beat Bob Bodie by 0.06 of a second my first eliminations round back, and then I got left on and outrun by Blake Alexander in the second round. So, and those two cars, there were times when they may not necessarily be favored to win races, and they're right in the thick of the mix now, and then a half a dozen others. And if you look at reaction times over the years, they seem to get better. And it's not just that human evolution has made us react to things quicker. The crew chiefs find things with the injectors, with the clutch discs, with the wheelie bar setup that makes the car move that 1 foot faster. Recognize reaction time is the difference between when the Christmas tree activates and the front tire rolls forward far enough to reestablish the stage beam. You can make them look better just by rolling the car in further, but your foot didn't move any faster. My goal is to help my foot move faster, and that's all taking place here, and that's going to take some practice. And right now, Austin Prock is a standard there, and I tell you, it's a tough combination. You've got the same thing going on in Top Fuel with Justin Ashley. When you have a great driver in a great car, it's hard to get past him. But I know I got a great car. My job is to rise to the occasion.
And you know, with this now, you have a great opportunity to showcase to all the team owners now, including John Force Racing themselves, that you still have a right to be out here, that you can still hang with these guys, even being away for 4 years. Do you still feel that this could open an opportunity where you can come back next year and further beyond as a full-time driver once again?
Great question, Noah. I've got 7 races left, unless I really screw something up, right? And then at the end of the finals at Pomona this year, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'll still be fixing elevators when I'm back home during the week. And if something opens up for next year, that would be a wonderful problem to have, to wonder what I would do at that point. Because for 3 years, I haven't had that dilemma to face. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I mean, this is a second dream come true. The first dream was when Don Schumacher hired me in 2006. And to get to have done it for 14 years, I knew it was going to end at some point, and it probably wasn't going to be my decision, and that's exactly what happened. And I also reminded myself over the years, handle it like an adult and be grateful for what you got, and I was. And now I got a second opportunity. So I'm going to make the best of the next 7 races, and we'll see what happens in the off season.
And then last question I got for you. This weekend marks the 70th anniversary of the U.S. Nationals. You know, Indianapolis, mecca of motorsports. You have the big track down the street. I mentioned the 500 earlier. 1992, Allenton Jr. won the race for the first time and sit in victory lane. You don't know what Indy means. As somebody who has won this event twice, you have your name in the history books of the U.S. Nationals. What does Indy mean to Jack Beckman?
More than just Indy. I think my first Indy win was the best weekend you could have in drag racing. We won the shootout and we won the race. I don't think it possibly could get any better than that. But there's a lot of things in life that you don't necessarily appreciate how awesome they were until later. So it's a fine balance in life, because if you really get caught up in the emotion of it and enjoying it in the moment, it also means when things don't go your way, it's going to be a really tough thing to deal with emotionally. So I think in retrospect, my Indy wins mean even more. 2020, the year the world was falling apart. We had 4 Indy races, but only 1 was the U.S. Nationals. The John Force cars did not show up after the COVID restrictions came in, so we didn't have them in the mix. But I still treasure that win, because it was Indy and it was against a lot of tough cars out there. But the extra deal this year, if we could win it, is I haven't won a race since Dallas of 2020. I've won 1 round since Dallas of 2020. And this team has put together a wonderful race car. They were in contention. They'd won 2 races with John. They had a lull. I think they need that emotional boost as much as I do.
And then also to mention that now, you talk about you won 2020. That means you are now still a defending U.S. Nationals winner. So you still can go 2 in a row this weekend.
I don't think I'm going to be on the cover of the program, but you're right. The last time I ran Indy, I won Indy, yeah.
All right, so thank you so much for your time this weekend. One last bit, with Peak, we're doing a giveaway for the U.S. Nationals. We have 3 swag bags that we're giving away. Sign-ups are up for that now. I do have one question for you. And there goes the shark.
Hey, look at this. I brought my own.
Perfect. He always comes prepared. Did you learn that from John too?
Thank you, Christine.
So if you wouldn't mind, sign this so that way.
So I'm going to tell you guys something. For 3 years and 9 months, I've been Jack the elevator repairman. I've never fixed somebody's elevator and they're like, can I get a picture? Can you sign my... So for 3 years and 9 months, I was not practicing signing my name. It is a wonderful opportunity to get to hang out with the fans, to sign autographs, and hopefully somebody will enjoy a Peak hat. And you know, Peak has just been amazing to this team.
It's like you never left, huh? Jack, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to John Force Racing and Peak for letting us come in here. Good luck this weekend. And again, if you want to win one of these, including now the grand prize giveaway, a signed Jack Beckman hat. How cool is that? Sign up. A link will be down below. Jack, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate you, Noah. Take care, guys.